when there's an event on my calendar that I'm excited about, that I'm pumped about, it never catches me off guard. I'm ready for it. I'm prepared for it. I'll even sometimes count down to it, especially if it's vacation. When I put that on the calendar, I don't know about you, but it becomes a countdown. And sometimes we'll be talking as a family, or especially Sherry and I talking, it's like, we can make it through because on this date, yes, it'll finally be time to relax and enjoy and have fun. It's not even just vacation. Even if it's just a date night with Sherry, I get so excited about that. I'll count down to it. I look forward to it. It almost always involves eating, and it usually doesn't involve eating at, say, like a McDonald's. It's something a little nicer usually. So I will plan my day so that I am starving for that date, because I want to enjoy the date to the fullest. I want to be like ravaging and just tearing down that food and eating it. This is the best date ever. I plan those things out because they're important to me. I'll even count down to important events such as the beginning of Kentucky Wildcat basketball. And I count down to that too and look forward to it. Cameron and I were blessed to get to go see the two best teams in the nation play this past Friday night. The blue team and the white team of Kentucky Wildcats. I heard that amen. Awesome. And when we do that, we have a plan. There was this time I was coming by to pick up Cameron right after school. We had a plan to do Arby's, and we know where we're going to park, and we got it all timed out, and we get a plan. Because it's important to us. If it's something that you're excited about, it's not going to catch you off guard. You're ready for it, Even something as simple as the premiere of a TV show you've been looking forward to. You know how excited you get about that. That's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things, but it is to you. I set my DVR to record The Flash when it premiered again. I love superhero TV shows. They're great. There's some little zombie show coming on tonight some of you care about, Don't you think you're not counting down to that? We do those things. If it's important to you, it doesn't catch you off guard at all. And the point of that is this: we prepare for what is most important to us. We prepare for it. Now, sometimes it's big things like first dates, our wedding. Yeah, we prepare for that. The birth of a child. I remember having a bag packed for days and weeks in advance in case I got that word from Sherry, it's time to go. We can just grab a bag and go out the door and go to the hospital. We prepare for that, but it's not always big, gigantic things like that. It can be little things, just to get together with friends, and something like watching your favorite team play or whatever. If it's important to us, we prepare for it. Now, what's interesting about that is sometimes it might be important, but we don't prepare for it. Because even though it might be good and important, it's not important to us. Such as house chores, exams at school, exams at the dental office, things of that nature. I even, when I was younger, learned that I guess I didn't think it was that important to maintain my vehicle. After burning up 2 engines, I started thinking that was kind of important, to actually check the fluids. Or when a light comes on your instrument panel, that's not for decoration. You want to check that out. I learned that the hard way as a young driver. And now it's important to me. It's a good thing and it's important. So because of that, I prepare more. I put things on my schedule for it. Why is this important? Because good, important things get ignored if they're not good and important to you. You think about that. Just because it's important don't mean you make it a priority. Doesn't mean you prepare for it. And the reason I say all that is because this, to me, is your pastor's motive for even doing this sermon series we've been doing, The King is Coming. I want you to come away from this sermon series, and if you haven't been here the past few weeks, feel free to get on that app and check out the other sermons. But I want you to know clearly, it's so good that the King is coming. It's a good thing. We should get excited about that. And I know I was talking to our senior adults this past Thursday. We have a senior adult service on Thursday mornings. And we were looking in the book of Revelation. And I was telling them, and I think I said this last week too, it's sad that gets a bad rap, because that's supposed to be exciting and good. But what we tend to do is be scared and freaked out. And like, oh, that's freaky, that's scary. It's like, oh, the judgment's coming. But I'm here to tell you, the older I get, the more I realize this is a good thing. This is an exciting thing. We were not created for this world. There's a new heaven and a new earth that awaits for those who trust in Jesus Christ. And it's coming. It's a good thing that it's coming. And it certainly is an important thing that it's coming. And as we've been saying all along during this series, the most important upcoming event on the universe's calendar is the coming of King Jesus, his second coming. And I've tried to even think maybe I was wrong about that. Maybe I'm speaking in hyperbole. Maybe I'm exaggerating, because preachers can do that sometimes. And I tried to test it, and I can't find a better, more important event than this. This is it. This is absolutely the most important upcoming event on the universe's calendar. And if it is, and if it's good, and if it's important, should we not be doing whatever it takes to get ready for it? If Jesus' return is important to you, then you will get ready. Now let's be honest. Why is it important to us? Well, kind of the big, giant, pink elephant in the room, if we're being really honest, this is the big thing. Hell is scary. Heaven is awesome. That's a big motivation about this whole idea of the king is coming, right? If you really start looking at what God's Word says about His coming and what results in that and what's going to be happening, this is a big motivator. This is like, okay, the reason this is an important event is because of that divide. And I've had people say, and I kind of grew up in the churches I went to, I heard a lot about hell, almost like every Sunday. I think their goal was to scare me to death every time I came to church. I thought, man, they're just trying to freak me out. And so because of that, sometimes ministers, even like myself at times, we don't talk as much about that divide of hell is scary and heaven is awesome, because we don't want to scare people. But friends, it's just reality. It's real, you know. And I'll tell you another way to say it. Another way to say it is this: separation from God and His people is scary, but eternity with God and His people is awesome. They're both the same thing. And this is why this event is so important. And I want to tell you this, and I want you to hear this. And if you don't leave here with anything else, hear this clearly. This is urgent. This is big. Not being ready for Jesus' coming will have devastating, eternal consequences that can be difficult for us to grasp today. That's the big clincher. Today, we don't think about it too much, maybe, because it's been a long time. I mean, we talked about this in the past couple of weeks. It's like the coming of Jesus has been on the calendar for a couple of thousand years, a little longer than that even, actually. And so maybe we kind of sit back and kind of wonder, well, we don't know when it is. Because we don't know when it is, maybe it's not that important. Well, friends, I'm here to tell you, and you're going to find out today, it is urgent. And even though it might be difficult for us to grasp today, we need to begin to find a way to grasp it. Because we're talking about eternal and devastating consequences if we don't get this right. Not just for us, but for people we know and care about and love. And maybe people we don't even know, but we should be loving. So this is where we're going to be tracking today. We're going to be looking at Matthew chapter 25. And a couple of weeks ago, we looked in the chapter before that, Matthew 24. And what's interesting about Matthew 24, you have the words of Jesus describing His own second coming. And we parked there for a whole sermon a couple of weeks ago because I think He is the authority. It is, after all, it is His coming. And we talked about what He said about His coming. And you could sum up what He said with these three ideas. He said to beware. Beware that there's going to be a lot of misinformation. People are going to be trying to predict when I'm coming. I don't even know when I'm coming. That's what He said. So beware of misinformation, beware of falsehood, beware of people saying things that just aren't true and real about my coming. He also said to be aware, to be watchful for it. And this is the part that I guess I'm leaning into today. We must try to grasp it as important now. Even though it's not happened yet, even though it's been a long time coming, we must grasp it as urgent. Be aware, watch for it. Jesus even said, just like you can tell the changing of the seasons by watching the leaves of the plants that you take care of, you need to be watching for my coming. Be aware. And He also said to prepare. Be doing what I told you to do until I come back when I do come back. And that segues, because that's the idea He closed with in Matthew 24. We're going to keep going into Matthew 25 about preparing. What does that look like? What does it look like to get ready for Jesus' coming? What must we be doing to get ready for his coming. Well, Jesus explains that, and he uses 2 parables and 1 prophecy to do that, all in Matthew chapter 25. A parable is an earthly story that conveys a heavenly truth. And Jesus used that a lot in his teaching. He would talk about things that people that were hearing him, they got that. He would use agriculture. He would use cultural occurrences that they would understand and tell a fictional story about it. But it conveyed something very powerful and very truthful. We're going to look at 2 of those. And then this last part of this chapter, some people have called it a parable, but it's not. And you'll see that. It's actually very prophetic. It's very foretelling. So let's look at this together. Starting in verse 1. Of Matthew 25. It says, "At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet their bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps but did not take any oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep." And that verse reminds me of what we could be doing right here today, right? I mean, falling asleep. We know the king is coming, but it's been a while. So we're just kind of taking a nap on it. It says in verse 6, "At midnight the cry rang out, 'Here's the bridegroom. Come out to meet him.' Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, 'Give us some of your oil. Our lamps are going out.' 'No,' they replied, 'there may not be enough for both us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves.' But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later the others also came. 'Lord, Lord,' they said, 'open the door for us.' But he replied, 'Truly I tell you, I don't know you. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour.'" It's a heavy story. And what Jesus was saying made a lot of sense to his hearers. For us, we're like, okay, virgins, lamps, oil, what is going on? It's a wedding banquet. See, this happened in a day and time when weddings almost seemed a lot more spontaneous than they do for us today. I mean, today we schedule a wedding a year, 2 years, sometimes even more in advance. We get to create our own website that we can send our friends a link to so they can see that the wedding's coming. We can even put a countdown clock to it. There's no surprise factor to our weddings today here in America, right? They typically are planned out way in advance. And but between that and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and texting, I mean, there's no surprise factor. But back in those days, it was not quite like that in ancient Israel. When a man committed to marrying a woman, he would say, "Okay, we're committed to marrying each other. I'm going to go to my father's property. I'm going to go to my father's house, and I'm going to build a new room onto that house. I'm going to build a new house on his property. And once it's completed and we have a place to live together, I'm going to come for you. And you need to be ready, because when I come, it's time. We're going to have that wedding. We're going to have that banquet, and it's going to be awesome." And if you go back and read John 14, the first 6 verses, Jesus spoke in that same language to his disciples before he went away and was crucified and was buried and rose again. He said, "Do not let your heart be troubled. I'm going to prepare a place for you. In my Father's house are many rooms." This wedding language that the groom has gone away, but he's coming, and you need to be ready. Well, as the people were hearing Jesus tell this story, they were saying amen also. Amen, that's so true. Yeah, how dumb would that be to be getting ready for the groom to come and you don't even bring oil with you? And I think of our teenagers. You know what that's like, teenagers? It's like going somewhere on a long trip and not taking your phone charger. How crazy, that's devastating. It's not smart, is it? You know what I'm talking about. That's like forgetting the pacemaker, man, to keep your heart beating. I'm with you. I take my charger. So this is what they were experiencing. This is what the story was like. Yeah, I relate to that. Yeah, I relate to that. Oh yeah, I remember my cousin. They didn't bring oil in their lamp. They were late for the wedding. It was crazy. You know, they were getting what he was saying. What's he saying to you and me? There's one thing in that story that allowed people to make that banquet and be ready for it. It was one enduring thing. And you know what that thing is for us? Faith. So one thing that you can do to get ready for the coming king is to have enduring faith. A faith that lasts. You know what? As I was preparing for this sermon, that really struck me. Because I think we talk a lot about taking a next step of faith. And if we're not careful, it makes it sound like that's one thing you do and then you're done. I took my step of faith. I prayed and asked Jesus to save me, and I even checked a box that said I did. And friends, that is not faith. I mean, that's a step. Enduring faith is a faith that keeps on going and going and going through life's storms, through life's hardships. I had this thought today. I think about so many. We talk about this in staff meetings sometimes. I'm looking towards my teenagers right here. There are so many people who graduate from high school and graduate from youth group, and they also graduate from church. And some would even say graduate from their faith because they don't have an enduring faith. A faith that's built on an actual relationship with Jesus himself. Do you have that kind of faith? Is your faith just a moment in time, an emotional moment I had once upon a time where I checked a religious box in my life? Because that's not enduring faith. Enduring faith is a real, living, breathing relationship where you are getting to know God more and more every day. You're praying to him. You're reading about him in his word. You're seeking to live for him. He is my Jesus. He is my Lord. He is my shepherd. And I live for him and I follow him. That's enduring faith. And when the tough times come, when the king is not coming yet and the storms come, you endure because of that faith. You have oil in your lamp. That's how you must get ready for the coming king. To have an enduring faith that's built on a relationship with Jesus. Not built on circumstances, not built on something that's fleeting, but something that's enduring. And that's a relationship with him. It's so important. And that's what Jesus was teaching here. He told another parable. I love, my favorite parable is the one we're about to look at. It's my all-time favorite parable that Jesus taught. But a close second is one, it's the parable of the sower. He sowed seeds and it fell on different kinds of soil. And I always, when I think about this idea of enduring faith, I think about how he warned that for some people, they receive the gospel, but it's like shallow soil, like rocky soil. It sprouts up, but as soon as the scorching heat hits it, it withers and dies. And that's not enduring faith at all. And that's what we're supposed to have. That's what we must have, friends. If you want to know how to get ready for Jesus' coming, it's time for you to have not just a decision you once made once upon a time that you hang your hat on. It's enduring faith. It's a daily walk with this Jesus whom you've never seen, but you know he's real. And you know he died for you. And you know he's alive. And you know he's coming. And you live for him. That's enduring faith. He tells another story. My favorite one because sadly I see myself in it and it's not good. Verse 14 it says, again talking about the kingdom of heaven and his coming, again it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 bags more. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the one who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. Now I'm already seeing myself right there. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I've gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with 2 bags of gold also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I've gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See? Here's what belongs to you. I can almost see the pride in his face. Look, I didn't lose your money. I buried it and kept it safe. Here it is. Maybe he's expecting, all right, good, you didn't lose my money. But instead, it says in verse 26, his master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I do not scatter seed. Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. Duh. We get that today, right? At the very least, we could put it in some account where we get a little bit of interest. He goes on to say, so take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. In some weird, morbid way, I've always loved this parable because it so challenges me, because I see me in that man with the one bag of gold. I am not what you would call a natural risk taker. When I take a risk, you can bet your bottom dollar I've probably researched it. I like calculated risks. In fact, I was thinking back on this as I was preparing for today, and I remembered back when I did not want to ride roller coasters. To my defense, my dad put me on the Beast at Kings Island as my first coaster ride, and it ruined me, man. From that point on, the bumper cars, that was my idea of a big risk, you know. But there came a time, I think it was when I started in college, and a group of friends, and Sherry and I, we went to Kings Island. I remember thinking, man, I've not done coasters since I was crying like a baby in the Beast. So I need to get up my courage to do this. I didn't want to look like the one that didn't ride coasters. But you know what helped me was research. When I learned that I was more at risk riding in the car to get to Kings Island than I was being on the coaster, I'm like, that math makes sense to me. I shall ride roller coasters and know that I am safer there than I am in my own car. And believe it or not, that gave me courage. I love roller coasters now. Some of them still freak me out, and I get a little sick on them now. But I'm not naturally a risk taker. I'm by nature, I don't know if it's my wiring or if it's my sin nature, but I tend to want to take an easier path. I want to play it safe. And I watch this and I see this about myself. And it's not always good. The man in our story was a tragic hero. He was the star of the show, but he did not end well. Playing it safe didn't work. And this is what I believe God is teaching us through this parable. Not only must we have an enduring faith in order to get ready for King Jesus' coming, but we must take risks to grow God's kingdom. Imagine if followers of Jesus made their primary focus self-preservation. Imagine if churches made their primary focus self-preservation. I could tell you today, we would not be sitting here worshiping Jesus today. We would not. The gospel would not have made it here. But because from the beginning of people following Jesus, from the beginning of the church itself, they got this, they get this, this is done. Like, no, we must take risks. We must even go so far as to lay down our very life in order for other people to know that King Jesus is alive, that He died for them, and that He's coming back to take us to be with Him forever. We will lay down our life, and they did. They literally lost their heads for this, guys. They literally lost their families for this. They literally went hungry for this. They literally were beaten and put in prison for this stuff that you and I can't imagine. Taking risks to grow God's kingdom. I would ask you this morning. What risk are you taking? What effort are you making to grow God's kingdom? When's the last time you took some kind of risk to grow His kingdom, to tell others about Him, to expand His kingdom? What risk have you taken to invest for others' lives to be changed for Him? And friends, it will count. The cost will happen. You will lose something. I believe with all my heart, if I follow Jesus, at some point I will lose something. But oh, what a glorious honor and privilege it would be to take that risk for Him, considering all that He did for me. If you follow Jesus, you may have a friend that doesn't understand you. You may have a coworker that doesn't get you. You may have people that think you're weird. But if you do that, and people actually see the love of Jesus in you, they may say, that's different. But I want it. But they have a hope. They have a love. They have a joy that I don't comprehend. And I need it. Well, friends, what risk are you taking? We have done everything we can to provide on-ramps for everybody in this room, for anybody that comes in contact with us, to try to be a part of taking some kind of risk to grow out God's kingdom. That's why we say our mission statement here at Hickory Grove is to do whatever it takes to help every person take their next step with Jesus. I love that phrase, do whatever it takes, because I don't know about you, I do not want to do church as usual anymore. I don't even want to do Christianity as usual anymore. The King is coming, and it's time for us to play hardball, to get people who don't know about His love to know about His love. I want to take risks. I want Jesus, when He comes, to catch me doing something different that maybe has never been done before, to help other people know about His love. Would you join me in doing that? Matt was talking about our app earlier this morning, and in our app, if you have our app, you can click on volunteer, and we put a list of things you could say. I mean, we want to help you with this. We do greeting, we have parking lot greeters, we have people working on our kids men team, our student ministry team. We have people, we do feeding the hungry. We actually have a thing called Helping Hands Ministry. We partner with this resource center in Campbell County that feeds students who don't eat if we don't send food home with them every weekend. And we're doing that. There's maybe things you don't even know we're doing. And we want you to tell us, okay, this is something I would love to do. You just tell us that. We'll get you connected. We'll find a way to get you serving. But this is not a spectator sport, getting ready for Jesus, is it? It's not a spectator sport to be prepared for the coming King. It is a very active X and O thing. And I don't know about you, I want to be one of those X's or one of those O's. Let's get to work and prepare for the coming King. What risk are you taking? What effort are you making to grow God's kingdom? Well, he continues on. In verse 31, it says, when the Son of Man comes in His glory and all the angels with Him, He will sit on His glorious throne. That's not the beginning of a parable. That's not a fictional story with a heavenly truth. This is a prophecy. This is happening. He says, when this happens, He will sit on His glorious throne. And it says in verse 32, all the nations will be gathered before Him. This is not a parable. This is happening, guys. All the nations will be gathered before Him, and He will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. Wish they understood that as the listeners were hearing that. Yeah, we do that. We separate those. He will put the sheep on His right and the goats on His left. Then the King will say to those on His right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. Let me just pause for a moment. Let that sink in. Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. It blows my mind to think that this event on the universe's calendar, the coming King Jesus, that event has been on the universe's calendar since before the creation of the world. I don't even begin to grasp that, but it's awesome. It's awesome. He goes on to say something that was shocking to the people in this story. In verse 35, for I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. And the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? The King will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Then He will say to those on His left, depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. Whew. There's that pink elephant in the room again. This big divide, this big separation. He goes on to say in verse 42, for I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me. They also will answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or needing clothes or sick or in prison and did not help you? He will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me. And they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. Friends, this is not a parable. This is happening. Straight talk from Jesus. And if you're listening to that, I kind of have a tendency to be legalistic about things. So even as I read that passage again, my mind goes to, oh my goodness, we've got to do the right thing here to earn our entrance into heaven. I mean, we got to feed the hungry people. I've got to do the right things so that God is pleased with me, so He lets me into heaven. And I want to pause you right there to say, no way, that's not how it works. Don't hear that. Because if that were the case, Jesus didn't need to die for you. He died on the cross because we can't be good enough to go into heaven. He took our sin upon Himself and He paid for that. He redeemed us by His own blood so that we could spend eternity with Him. He paid it all for us. He made that happen. He bridged the gap that separated us from God. So why is He saying this? Why? Because you can't follow Jesus and not have great compassion for other people. So this is the third thing that you must do to get ready for the King's coming. Show great compassion. And sadly, I see this too much. We sort of calculate what it truly looks like to be a follower of Jesus as just merely church attendance or merely saying the right things or believing the right things or not doing the wrong things. And all the while, I believe God is looking and saying, hey, okay, that's good and all, but there's a hurting world out there with no hope. And they're in the darkness. And if you believe in me, you have the answer. You have hope. You have help. Go. Show great compassion. I've heard some people say, well, I wonder if really, because Jesus says, do this to the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, that He's really talking about our fellow Christian brothers and sisters, those who are being persecuted for their faith, thrown in prison for their faith, being persecuted and downtrodden for their faith. And I would say, yes, but that's only part of it. Don't forget that Jesus told another story about a Samaritan man who had a different religion than the Jewish people, who helped a Jewish person who had been beaten and robbed. And He says, that's what I want you to do. I want you to love people like that. That's what I want you to do. It's not about loving the lovable. It's about loving all who need to know about Jesus, no matter what their background is, no matter what they've done, no matter what their past is. Friends, this is what we need to be doing. And if we're not doing it, we ain't ready. When the King comes, may He see us having our hearts broken for the same things that break His heart. The injustice, the poverty, the outcast, the hurting, the helpless. This convicts me. I don't think I'll ever come to a point where I feel like I'm doing enough or our church is doing enough. But let's not sit by and say, well, because there's always going to be a need and we can't meet them all, sit idly by and just say, well, hopefully He'll come back soon and that'll all be over. Well, until He gets back, we should be on the front lines of showing His compassion to the hurting, friends. And I'm not talking about, you're probably thinking about, okay, I need to go to a homeless shelter. I need to go, you're thinking about what you need to do. And that's good, that's great. I'm talking about you look around you right where you are, the school campus you go to school on. Who needs hope? Who needs light in their darkness? Who is downtrodden? And you go to them. In your neighborhood, at your workplace, maybe in this very room. Who needs the love of Jesus? God has uniquely placed you in a place where you can show His compassion in a way that I can't, but you can where you are. So go for it. Take a risk. Grow His kingdom and show His compassion to others. Friends, this is what we need to have God catching us doing when He shows up. When He shows up, I want Him to catch us, have an enduring faith that isn't dependent on our circumstances. It's a real faith, a daily walk with Him. When He shows up, when He splits that sky again, I want Him to catch us taking risks as an individual, but as a church as well, to grow His kingdom. Not just sitting by, hoping maybe some people will come running through these doors and accept Jesus. We're going out into this community, into Northern Kentucky, to the ends of the earth with the good news of Jesus. That's what we must be doing. We must be doing it when He shows up. When He splits that sky, I want Him to see us showing great compassion to maybe people who get on your nerves. To people you don't think even deserve that compassion, but they need it. I want Him to catch me doing that. I want Him to catch you doing that. So I ask of you, right here, right now, what must you do, you personally do, today, to get ready for the King's coming? It might be you need to settle that enduring faith issue. It's time to take a real step of faith, to really live for Jesus, to really love Jesus. It's not just a compartment in my life, it is my life. That's different. And the way you start that is just talk to him right now. Talk to him today. Say, okay, God, I got to get this right. I'm done playing Christianity as usual. I want to really follow you. Or maybe it's time for you to do something. Don't be on the sidelines anymore. Take a risk to grow God's kingdom. Get on that app. Fill out that little form to volunteer. And it comes to all of our staff, and we'll get you plugged in. See one of us at the end of the service say, I want to get more involved. I don't know how, but I want to. We'll help you. That's what we're here for. Take a risk to grow God's kingdom. Or who in your circle, in your life, needs compassion? Go show it to them. Be the hands and the feet of Jesus so that he'll catch you doing that when he comes back. In Luke 18:8, Jesus, at the end of one of his other stories, he said, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? To me, that's a hurtful question. I don't want him to doubt that he'll find it. I don't want him to doubt that he'll find it here in Independence, Kentucky, in northern Kentucky. May we show him when he shows up that we do indeed have faith. That we took him seriously and did whatever it takes to help every person take their next step with Jesus until he gets back here. So that when we see him, we will also hear the same words that he prophesied others will hear. Well done, good and faithful servant. Why is this important, friends? Because nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. When Jesus splits that sky, he's not going to ask you your GPA. What was your ACT score? How much money did you make? Were you wearing the latest fashions? Praise God, he's not going to ask me that. Did your favorite team win a lot of games, win a championship? Let's be honest, those things are important to us. I'm not telling you to quit school. I'm not telling you to quit your job and not take care of your house. What I'm saying is that when you think about it, when he splits that sky, none of that matters. And we spend so much of our time thinking about those things, but it doesn't matter. What matters are the souls who need him, that don't have him yet. Let's go get them together.